Hi, my name is Chris Bowen, and I studied abroad in Paris, France in spring of 2009, and I went and studied history at the Catholic Institute of Paris, Institut Catholique de Paris, if you know French, and I studied history and politics, I guess, there. I took mainly French courses, but I took one English course as well.
So why did you want to do study abroad?
The reason I was actually interested in French culture and language, and I had taken it in high school and in college, so I felt a logical extension would be to go spend some time in the culture that I studied for so many years.
So why France?
Uh, Paris, France, because I knew the language somewhat, written mainly, not very well conversationally.
What was your first impression of Paris?
My first impression of Paris, well, it was the biggest city, I guess, that I had ever seen, because I had yet to go to New York City, and I'm from a small town in Vermont, and I've been to D.C., but nothing compared to Paris, so a big city, but with no big skyscrapers. I was expecting huge buildings and stuff, but that wasn't the way Paris was. It felt very 19th century, so that was very cool.
Did you know any French before you left?
Yes, I did know some French. It was considered elementary, so I could talk to a 6-year-old, so that was good.
And did you take a class in French, and how did your knowledge of the language change?
Yes, I took 4 classes in French. 3 of them were during the school year, and I also took an intensive month to prepare me for those 3 classes in French. So in the United States, they teach very much towards written and reading comprehension. But when you go to France, you can't write everything down when you're talking to people in restaurants or on the street. So I learned conversational pieces of French much better, and I feel much more comfortable speaking to people, which in my opinion is the most important part of the language.
How were the classes? So some of your classes were in French and some were in English?
Yes, the classes were somewhat difficult only because it was new information in a foreign language. So it was somewhat complicated, but if you went home and looked at the notes, it wouldn't be a major problem. And the teachers were very accommodating. They understood that their class was full of non-native speakers, so they didn't use intense vocabulary or anything like that, so they understood their target audience was not native.
And how were your classes in English?
My one class in English was excellent. It was on Europe Today, so we learned about the European Constitution, the Parliament, all the stuff that Europeans don't know anything about. So I became almost an instant expert because I knew so much more than most people on the issues. So that was very cool and very complex.
Where did you live in Paris?
I lived with a host family, which I would recommend to most people rather than living in dorms with other Americans, because it really forces you to get in the mindset of the people in that country. So we're used to eating dinner between 5 and 6, and in Paris you eat dinner at 8. You have bread, you have baguettes, you have water in a pitcher, and there's a 4-course meal, and you sit there for an hour and a half and talk about whatever. And then when you're eating with Americans, you'll probably order pizza down the street, and you'll have it for 20 minutes, and you can do that here for the 3.5 or however many years you're going to study abroad. You really need to take that time and live the way that they do there and experience it.
What do you feel you got from the experience?
I feel I got a lot of cultural knowledge, especially French. People say European culture, but I don't subscribe to that theory because each country, while small, has its own distinct culture, I guess. So I got a very French culture, an understanding of it, and of language. So that I took that away, and I feel like I can relate to anybody who spent any time in France, and especially in Paris now.
Do you have any advice for students looking to study in Paris or in France?
Any advice would be to put yourself out there and try to immerse yourself as much as you can in the culture. Now, I'll admit that I was watching Lost at night sometimes and going online and trying to reconnect myself with American culture, and I was craving that hot dog, but you can have that the rest of your life when you come home. So fight those urges while they may be strong and go out there and sit by the Seine or have a glass of wine or go to a club or something. Do something very European. You'll feel much better about it when you get back home and say that you've done them.
Thank you, Chris, very much.